Here we continue to focus on the interaction of humans with other species, including the African elephant, which acts as a keystone species in the African savanna by maintaining the grassland ecosystem. Its removal would change the entire ecosystem, possibly resulting in the death of many other species. Due to habitat destruction and ivory poaching, humans have caused the species to become vulnerable in its survival status. Extinction of the African elephant could cause extinction of several other species, reminding us of the delicate balance between different species. Therefore, preservation of all species is key, as eventually our own actions may cause us to go extinct as well. This presentation focuses on the interactions of different species within a community. We start our discussion with predator-prey interactions. Remember that a predator is an organism that consumes other living organisms, whether they be animals or plants. Believe it or not, herbivores are considered predators because they feed on plant prey. Prey are the organisms consumed by the predators. In this case, the predators benefit while the prey are harmed. In order to survive, predators must be able to capture prey so they can eat, and prey must avoid being captured so they don't end up being a predator's lunch. Therefore, predator and prey populations exert natural selection on one another. Predators evolve to become better at capturing prey, while prey evolve to become better at escaping predators. Camouflage has evolved to allow predators to become better hunters and to allow prey to avoid detection by those predators. Camouflage refers to color, patterns, or shapes on an organism that resembles its surroundings, disguising it from view. Camouflage prey may resemble leaves, twigs, seaweed, or thorns to avoid detection by predators, while camouflage predators may blend in with grass, trees, or algae while hunting so prey don't see them coming. The tropical walking stick insect and the chameleon lizard use body shape and/or coloration to prevent detection by predators. Camouflage in this owl predator makes it difficult for prey to detect it, which means that prey may unwittingly get too close to the owl, making them easier to catch. While camouflage allows prey to hide from predators, warning coloration does the exact opposite. Warning coloration consists of bright colors on organisms that warn predators that the organism is poisonous or tastes bad. Therefore, even though the predator can easily detect the prey, it's not going to eat the prey, knowing that it is going to get sick or have an unpleasant experience. The strawberry poison dart frog uses bright coloration to warn predators that it is toxic, while the striped skunk uses a distinct pattern of coloration to warn predators of the unpleasant odor that it produces. If you mimic someone, you copy what they do or say. In the predator-prey world, mimicry refers to one species evolving to resemble or copy another. There are several examples of mimicry. On this slide, we consider two of them. The first is that harmless animals evolve to resemble poisonous ones to avoid being eaten. For example, there are non-poisonous snakes or insects that resemble poisonous ones. Another example of mimicry is that several distasteful species resemble one another to train predators to avoid eating all species with a certain coloration. For instance, predators know to avoid eating poisonous bees, hornets, and yellow jackets, all with the same black and yellow coloration. Another example is that predators also avoid eating distasteful monarch and viceroy butterflies that have similar orange and black coloring. One form of mimicry occurs when a non-poisonous species mimics the coloration of a poisonous species, as is seen here with the Texas coral snake and Louisiana milk snake, which is a harmless species of king snake. Take a look at the mnemonic. Red and yellow kill a fellow, indicating that yellow on both sides of red indicates that the snake is poisonous. Compare this to the coloration of the Louisiana milk snake and remember the mnemonic red and black, venom lack. In this case, there is black on both sides of the red. Regardless, a predator is not going to be able to easily detect the slight difference in the coloration of these two snakes. Since a predator knows that the Texas coral snake is poisonous, it most likely will avoid taking a chance on eating the Louisiana milk snake as well. This is another example of a non-poisonous species mimicking the coloration of a poisonous species to avoid being eaten by predators. In this case, the poisonous bumblebee is mimicked by the bee-like robber fly. This is the second form of mimicry in which several distasteful species resemble one another to train predators to avoid eating all species with a certain coloration. In this case, several distasteful butterfly species share a similar color pattern, not only with one another, but also with better tasting varieties so that they all avoid being eaten. There are two other examples of mimicries covered on this slide. The first is when a prey species evolves to mimic its predator. An interesting example is snowberry flies. These flies are hunted by jumping spiders. Therefore, the fly's coloration and behavior has evolved to resemble that of the spiders themselves to avoid predation by the spiders. A jumping spider is not going to try and hunt another jumping spider. The last example is startle coloration, which refers to patterns that disrupt predation by distracting the predator. A specific example is that some insects have evolved patterns of color that resemble the eyes of a much larger animal. Typically, the size of an animal's eyes correspond with its overall size, so in this case, the predator is tricked into thinking that it's trying to hunt a much larger animal and will probably back down in search of a smaller animal. The peacock moth from Trinidad, which is an island off the coast of Venezuela in South America, is well camouflaged, but should a predator approach, it opens its wings to reveal spots resembling very large eyes. Predator and prey populations have also evolved toxic chemicals either for attack or defense. Examples include the venoms of spiders and snakes that are used to either paralyze prey or to deter predators. Another example is the ink that is released by squid and octopus when they are attacked to confuse predators. An octopus releases ink when it feels threatened to confuse a potential predator by hiding the organism and also distracting the predator. I mentioned earlier that herbivores are predators of plants. Therefore, plants have evolved defense mechanisms to avoid predation by these herbivores. For instance, many plants manufacture toxic and distasteful chemicals. Consider the example of poison ivy or poison oak. You know that if you make contact with one of these plants, you get a rash on your skin. Imagine an animal that eats poison ivy getting the same rash on its mouth, tongue, and face. It's going to learn very quickly to avoid eating poison ivy. Another defense mechanism of plants are their structures. They have structures such as tough leaves, thick bark, and thorns, making them more difficult to eat. While plants have developed defense mechanisms to avoid being eaten by herbivores, herbivores have also evolved to overcome or use plant defenses. For instance, grazing animals like horses, sheep, and cows have strong grinding teeth that allow them to break down the tough leaves found in grass. Another example is that insects that feed on plants may be able to detoxify or even use the plant poisons to their benefit. Specifically, monarch butterflies lay their eggs on poisonous milkweed plants. The caterpillars that hatch from these eggs are able to tolerate the poison while they eat the plants, and maintain it in their own systems as defenses against predators. This poison is retained in the monarch butterfly after metamorphosis. This is what makes a monarch butterfly poisonous. It doesn't technically produce its own poison, but carries the poison from the milkweed plant in its body throughout its entire lifespan. A monarch caterpillar feeds on milkweed that contains a powerful toxin. Notice the bright warning coloration in the caterpillar as well. That is there to warn predators that it is also poisonous after it consumes the milkweed. This presentation discusses interaction between different species living together in a community. We move from predator-prey interactions into the prolonged interactions known as symbiosis. Symbiosis refers to prolonged, intimate interaction between organisms of different species. The first species benefits from the relationship, while the second species may be unaffected, harmed, or helped by the relationship. There are three types of symbiotic relationships that we are going to discuss: Commensalism, Parasitism, and Mutualism. Keep in mind that predator-prey interactions may not necessarily be symbiotic because they are not always long-lived. For instance, a lion that eats a zebra has a very short-lived interaction with that zebra, simply killing it, eating it, and digesting it. Commensalism is a symbiotic relationship in which the first species benefits and the second is neither harmed nor helped, meaning that it is unaffected. An example would be that certain barnacles attach to a whale. The barnacles benefit by getting a free ride through nutrient-rich waters, while the whale appears to be completely unaffected. In this example of commensalism, the southern masked weaver bird is starting to build a nest in a tree in Zambezi Valley, located in Zambia, Africa. In this case, the bird benefits by getting a home, while the tree neither benefits nor is harmed. Parasitism is a symbiotic relationship in which a parasite organism benefits by feeding on a host organism, and the host organism is harmed. Parasites are smaller and more numerous than the host. Parasites live on or inside their hosts, harming or weakening them. This is a symbiotic relationship because the parasites will remain inside or on the hosts as long as they are not removed. Examples of parasites include tapeworms, fleas, ticks, leeches, bacteria, and viruses. Mutualism is a symbiotic relationship in which both species benefit. Therefore, in this case, the second species is also helped. An example is lichen. In this case, an algae and fungus interact so that the fungus supports and protects the algae, which in turn provides food for the fungus. Termites form a mutualistic relationship with symbiotic protozoa, which is a single-celled organism, in their guts, which allows both organisms to obtain energy from the cellulose that the termite consumes by eating wood. In panel B, we see that lichen is a fungus that has a symbiotic photosynthetic algae living inside its cells. There are many other mutualistic interactions that we can discuss. For instance, many organisms have a mutualistic relationship with bacteria. An example in animals is the bacteria found in the intestines of cows. The bacteria help the cows digest the cellulose from grass, while cows supply the bacteria with a home and nutrient supply. Humans have a similar mutualistic relationship with the bacteria found in our own intestines. An example in plants is that there's nitrogen-fixing bacteria that live in the roots of legume plants. The bacteria convert soil nitrogen into a usable form for the plants, while the plants provide bacteria food and shelter. Despite the fact that we originally discussed mutualism in the context of long-term symbiotic relationships, we have to realize that many mutualistic relationships do not involve the prolonged intimacy of symbiosis. An example would be flowering plants and their pollinators. Insects, hummingbirds, and bats drink the nectar from flowers and carry their pollen to other plants to aid in plant reproduction. While both sets of organisms benefit in this case, the relationships are short-lived, so while the interactions are mutualistic, they are not considered symbiotic. The last type of relationship that we discuss between species in a community is that of a keystone species with many other species in that same community. In a community, species interact with many other species to give each community its own distinctive properties. A keystone species is a species which has a major influence on the overall community structure. Therefore, removal of a keystone species drastically alters the community. An example is the predatory starfish Pisaster that lives in the intertidal coast of Washington. Pisaster feeds on mollusks to keep the population from getting so large that it displaces many other species. The starfish Pisaster is a keystone species found along the rocky coast of the Pacific Northwest, where it feeds on mollusks. These are invertebrate creatures, meaning no backbone, that usually have a shell. These include snails, clams, and mussels. We end this presentation right back at the beginning, where we started with our discussion of African elephants as a keystone species. These elephants in the African savanna graze on small trees and bushes, thereby maintaining the grassland ecosystem by preventing forestation because trees aren't able to grow. On that note, do you know that you have now officially survived your absolute last presentation in this class? Congratulations and good luck in finishing out the rest of the semester. You've made it this far, you're almost done. You should be very proud of yourself.